Right, good day, team. Today we are looking at task C, and most specifically, we're going to reflect on the PRI for task C. So let's get into it. Right. So when we're looking at task C of APC 2022, the pre-released information document 5 was specifically containing the trigger for this task. So you got an email on the 9th of December 2022, being the Friday at 8:45 a.m. And this email was from Elijah Mulabi, the CFO, coming to you as the financial manager. And the subject of the email was matters arising from meeting with external auditors. So let's unpack it. So it's interesting that the email does not even have a hi. It just goes straight into it. They mean business, eh? Yesterday afternoon, I had a meeting with Basil Bean, the audit engagement partner, and his team. Basil Bean is from Greener and Company, our duly appointed firm of registered auditors. The purpose of the meeting was for the team to clarify its understanding of our systems of internal control as part of its planning for the upcoming audit of Fodjan's annual financial statements for FY 2022. Remember, the year end is 31st October 2022. So they wanted to clarify some matters in respect of their understanding of our systems of internal controls as part of the planning of the audit. Interesting. So this external auditors look like they had some clarifying questions to make sure that they fully understand our system of internal controls. Numerous questions were asked about our system of internal control for revenue. It was specific to revenue. Numerous questions were asked about our system of internal control for revenue. I'm not sure whether these questions are due to the sizable increase in revenue from the prior financial year. The auditor in me just paused here and said, I'm not sure whether these questions are due to the sizable increase in revenue from the prior financial year. I was like, hang on, did revenue increase in size between the 2 years? Then I went to the slide that provides the breakdown of the revenue, and I realized that indeed revenue is increasing from about 90 million to about 116 million. So about 28% increase in revenue. That is very sizable. But this got me to thinking about whether we have adequate controls. But this got me to thinking about whether we have adequate controls in operation to ensure that these revenue streams are correctly invoiced to our franchisees. This got me to thinking about whether we have adequate internal controls in operation to ensure that these revenue systems are correctly, these revenue streams are correctly invoiced to our franchisees. So clearly, I need to have a detailed understanding of our revenue streams and exactly how the franchisees are being invoiced to be able to understand if we've got adequate controls to ensure that this revenue is correctly invoiced. Accordingly, I would like you to set some time aside in the next few days to review the system of internal control for our revenue transactions. Accordingly, I would like you to set some time aside in the next few days to review the system of internal control for our revenue transactions. So that is going to be the task. They're actually going to ask me to review a system of internal control for revenue transactions when the IOD comes. The audit team also expressed the desire to make greater use of automated tools and techniques. The audit team also expressed the desire to make greater use of automated tools and techniques when conducting the audit to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of its work. Not being particularly tech-savvy, I would appreciate your assistance in helping them with this, if necessary, once the audit is underway. So it looks like also this audit team wants to overhaul their audit approach as far as audit of revenue transactions are concerned, in order to improve their efficiencies and the effectiveness of their work. And because Elijah, the CFO, is not tech savvy, he's going to ask me to assist in this automation or use of automated tools and techniques by the external audit team when the audit is underway. So I'm thinking, what kind of automated tools and techniques will external auditors use in conducting the audit of revenue? It will be interesting to find out on the day. So let's unpack this in a trigger table, as we usually do, and understand the extent of work that we need to do, either in obtaining an understanding or updating an understanding. Remember, there are two requests in respect of this part of the email that we've read. I would like you to set some time aside in the next few days to review the system of internal control for revenue transactions. I would like you to set some time aside in the next few days to review the system of internal control for revenue transactions. Interesting. The audit team, okay, maybe let's unpack that. Let's unpack that internal control on revenue. It's an audit. It sounds like an audit task, or you could even look at it from a risk management. What we need is to obtain a high-level understanding of the general process flow in a franchisor-franchisee relationship for this revenue transaction. So we need to go and read about what's the relationship between the franchisor, being Fodjan, and various franchisees, and the general process flow as to how revenue eventually flows into Fodjan in terms of this franchise agreement. Because I'm anticipating that they would say review the internal controls on the revenue transactions for weaknesses and identify those weaknesses. I also want to obtain an understanding of automated and manual controls related to the point of sale system. Remember, they are using a point of sale system, and that's where I want to also, over and above the general process flow or process description, I want to start understanding some of the manual and automated controls in respect of this POS system. Because they may ask me actually to prepare risk assessment for the revenue transactions based on the internal control system. Interesting. Hence, updating our understanding of the risk assessment procedures specifically on revenue streams will be quite critical. I want to understand what are the inherent risk factors that could get the revenue not to be appropriate or not to be correctly invoiced, as the CFO have mentioned. All right, so that was in respect of the first one, and we're going to have to take some time in doing that together, obtaining a high-level understanding of the general process workflow, identifying and understanding automated and manual controls, and undertaking a risk assessment. But in addition, they said the audit team also expressed the desire to make greater use of automated tools and techniques when conducting the audit to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of its work. The audit team also expressed the desire to make greater use of automated tools and techniques when conducting the audit to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of its work. So here then now, what we have to do is to update our understanding on the use of computer-assisted audit techniques, the CATs, to collect sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. So it's sort of like stepping back and say, what kind of computer-assisted audit techniques would the auditors, in trying to automate their audits by using automated tools and techniques, which tools would they use, and would they collect sufficient and appropriate audit evidence in respect of this revenue, including updating our understanding of analytical procedures and data analysis techniques. Okay, so big data and DNA seems to be something that I need to have a full understanding of. I need to be a subject area expert. So I'm anticipating that they may say I must design or review procedures to audit the revenue controls using CATs, or to analyze various trends for revenue streams for potential errors and inaccuracies. Interesting. All right, so maybe let's take one step at a time, because for us to do all this, let's start by perhaps understanding the revenue that is being recorded by Fodjan. But for us to understand that revenue, we firstly, number one, need to understand how the process flow of the franchisor versus the franchisee. Okay, so how do the franchisee record their revenue, and how does it eventually flow into the point of sale system, and how eventually does it become Fodjan's revenue, and understand the revenue stream of Fodjan, and then go and do a risk assessment on that, identify both automated and manual controls. Then we can look at some of the computer-assisted techniques and data analytics. I think that gives us a sense of where we can go from here. So let's start with understanding the business model for Fodjan, because this will enable us to really know how this revenue process flows. So this is the information that would be sitting in your pre-release background information. So the first email included an attachment of the slides, and the slides was undertaking or unpacking the business model. So if we go through it, you guys would have gone through it with Rendani from Rendani's just unpacking the business, the industry, doing a SWOT analysis and all those business acumen, just making sure you're comfortable with the industry and the business. But we're going to redo it because it's very relevant to our task, just to be aware of how the business model works. So firstly, they say Fodjan is a casual dining restaurant franchise group. So it's a casual dining restaurant franchise group, which has one brand, and the name of the brand is Fodjas. The vast majority of Fodjas restaurants are franchised. They do not believe in competing against their own franchisees, virtual partners in their ecosystem, because these franchisees are their vital partners in their ecosystem. Fodjan has occasionally acquired underperforming franchise restaurants with the aim of turning this around and finding new franchisees to own and operate them. So they occasionally acquire underperforming franchise restaurants with the aim of turning them around and finding new franchisees to own and operate them. So it sounds like Fodjan is in a business of just being the franchisor, and they don't have restaurants of their own, because if they were to have restaurants of their own, those restaurants will compete with the restaurants belonging to the franchisees. However, occasionally, Fodjan acquires underperforming franchise restaurants with the aim of turning them around and then selling them back to franchisees to own and operate them, and they continue receiving franchise fees. So it will be in rare circumstances where you will find Fodjan owning a fleet of restaurants. So Fodjan supports its franchisees in setting up new restaurants by undertaking feasibility studies, site selection, standardized decor selection, project management, and training of staff. So those are some of the things that they do to assist the franchisees. They undertake feasibility studies, site selection, standardized decor selection, project management, training of staff. Okay, interesting. Then they further says, Fodja's menu focus on burgers, chicken, steak, and ribs with plant-based protein option. Wow, even plant-based protein option sounds quite healthy. They do not have any pasta, pizza, or flame grilled chicken items on their menus. Too many options spoil the broth. Franchisees offer menu items and charge prices that are centrally set by Fodjan. Okay, so there is a centralized setting of prices by the franchisor to be used by all franchisees. Fodjan's restaurant do not allow reservations. Okay, they did say it's casual dining, so it's walk in and get served. All Fodjan's franchisees are required to install and operate a standardized point of sale software system procured from a global leading IT group that enables the following. Okay, they seem to be having a standardized point of sale software system that is used, and this has been acquired from a global leading IT group. So what does this POS software system does? It enables registration of orders and sending this directly to the kitchen. So registering of an order and sending this directly to the kitchen, checking on the status of orders without having to walk to the kitchen, modification of orders, meaning remove or swap ingredients and extra items, processing of payments, being both credit or debit cards, cash and mobile wallets, data analytics and reporting. So this system looks like it can do a number of things, which is quite nice. But when I'm reading this, I'm already seeing some of the controls that I would expect, internal controls, if this is the case. And also it helps me start to understand and visualize a particular restaurant and ultimately how revenue is going to be accruing to Fodjan. But let's keep reading and understand this information. Waiters can use tablets to place orders and check on the status of the orders via the POS system. Interesting. As we continue, Fodjan offers procurement services for a fee to franchisees. Sounds like there's another revenue stream. Fodjan offers procurement services for a fee to franchisees. So how does this procurement service work? Fodjan negotiates prices and terms with key restaurant suppliers for things like meat, vegetables, bakery goods, dairy products, catering equipment, etc., to enable franchisees to purchase high-quality products at competitive prices. Okay, so there's a central negotiation by Fodjan of prices and terms with key restaurant suppliers so that the franchisees can receive high-quality products at competitive prices. The franchisees can order via Fodjan's portal and suppliers deliver directly to restaurants. Franchisees pay suppliers directly. And Fodjan's restaurants are targeted to serve middle to upper income families and patrons. Fodjan has its own range of sauces and seasonings. Because the reason I'm pausing a bit is I'm wondering, okay, so how much procurement service fee does Fodjan charges to the franchisees? I guess we'll need to find out at some point. Fodjan has its own range of sauces and seasonings, the manufacturing of which is outsourced to third-party manufacturers, so they don't do it in-house. Fodjan also procures packaging suppliers for Fodjan's restaurants to ensure consistency at each restaurant. That's nice. Franchisees are required to purchase the sauces, the seasonings, the packaging from Fodjan. So Fodjan must be making another revenue stream. So far, well, I would have expected, obviously, to have the franchise fee, but it looks like there's a procurement service fee as well for central negotiation of prices and terms. And also there is this selling of own range of sauces and seasonings to each of the restaurants. So this first two are services, but this one is the sale of goods. Interesting. Franchisees are required to purchase the sauces, seasonings, and packaging from Fodjan. Sauce and seasoning products are available for purchase at Fodjan's restaurant and selected grocery retailers by customer or patrons. Interesting. So even the customers or the patrons are allowed to buy from the restaurants. Interesting. So there will be a lot of revenue. So it's not just Fodjan selling to franchisees, but it's also the franchisees selling to maybe on behalf of Fodjan, or is it for their own behalf, selling those sauces and seasonings. Fodjan's customer can, in addition to sit-down meals, place orders for delivery or for collection. Okay, they run a delivery business as well. The latter is referred to as click and collect. Click and collect. Fodjan has relationships with both Mr. D and Uber Eats with regards to delivery options. Individual Fodjan's restaurants need to load their details on the Mr. D and Uber Eats platforms or apps and pay a negotiated commission percentage of the food order value to Mr. D or Uber Eats. The delivery platforms collect payments directly from their customer and pay over the amounts less commission to Fodjan's franchisees. Okay, so this does not look like additional income stream for Fodjan. It's simply an additional purchasing of goods of the food by customers of the franchisees. But I mean, I indirectly, Fodjan, I would anticipate it, will get a portion of this in the form of franchise fees, if franchise fees are based on a percentage of total revenue made by the franchisees, because this Mr. Delivery or Uber Eats revenue will form part of the franchisees' revenue. Fodjan develops meaningful relationships. Fodjan develops meaningful relationships with Fodjan's franchisees and visits them at least once a month. Fodjan develops meaningful relationships with Fodjan's franchisees and visits them at least once a month to provide operational support and share skills and know-how. Franchise agreements between Fodjan and franchisees are 5 years duration, renewable or terminable at the option of either party at the end of the 5-year period. Quite a mouthful, quite a lot to learn from the background information. Then we keep going. There's more. There are currently 96 Fodja's franchisee restaurants open and trading throughout South Africa. Fodja's restaurants are typically located in smaller suburban shopping centers in major cities and towns. Fodja's restaurants are also located in standalone. Just give me a second. Oh, there we go. Cool. I had lost my slide. Yes, Fodja's restaurants are typically located in smaller suburban shopping centers in major cities and towns. Fodja's restaurants are also located in standalone properties in suitable suburbs. Fodjan discourages operating restaurants in larger shopping malls because of the high rental costs. Okay, so it looks like they are generally operating in smaller suburban shopping centers in major cities and towns. They don't like the large shopping malls. But they've got 96 franchise restaurants. Wow, that's a lot. Fodjan recently purchased 100% of the equity of Big Range Pty Limited, which is a franchisee with 5 Fodja's restaurants. So Fodjan recently purchased 100% of the equity of Big Range, which is a franchisee with 5 Fodja's restaurants. Okay, so then Fodjan acquired this onto their books. These restaurants ran into financial difficulty during the COVID-19 lockdowns. Instead of letting these restaurants close, Fodjan purchased Big Range because of the strategic locations of the restaurants. Fodjan intends to turn around the profitability of these 5 restaurants and at a later stage to sell them to new franchisees. Interesting. Okay. So when I looked at this, I said, okay, they've even given us a table summarizing how many franchisee restaurants they had open at the start of each financial year for the last 3 years, new restaurants openings in each year, restaurant closures, not able to trade profitably during COVID-19, and some had to close, and number of restaurants at the end of each year. You know, when I'm looking at this, then I'm like, yeah, what is the number of restaurants at year end? It's 94 for 2020. So 2020, they started at 104. So they had a lot, but 10 closed due to COVID, and they closed at 94. In 2021, they started at 94. They didn't open new ones, but 8 closed again due to COVID-19, and 86 were remaining. So it went down. But in 2022, 10 additional ones were open, and 96 exist at the end of the 2022 year. Then, because I thought about the fact that they're triggering analysis, data analytics, etc., I wanted to just also have a view of how much will a revenue be, how much revenue will be generated per franchisee restaurant. And then I calculated the revenue per restaurant, and the revenue is found in the next slide. But initially, I excluded the Big Range because I was saying they were acquired towards the end of this financial year, so their numbers wouldn't be included. But I was mistaken, and I need to go undo that, because this franchisees restaurants, the 5 that are coming as Big Range, they are already Fodja's restaurants. So their revenue would have been included in the numbers in any case as a franchisee fee or any other fee, procurement, and what are the seasoning, the purchase of seasoning and sauces. So actually, I'm going to undo the excluding of the big range, and I'm going to recalculate this revenue per restaurant inclusive of the big range. Meaning that 10 new restaurant openings does not include the 5 from Fodjan. The 10 does not include the 5 from big range. So it's really new restaurants. And there's currently a strong pipeline of applicants for new franchise restaurants, and Fodjan expects a further 8 Fodjas restaurants to open in FY 2023. Okay, so more openings are expected in the new year. So let me do the update and update my revenue per restaurant and remove the exclusion of big range and remove the exclusion of big range. Right, all updated. You can see the revenue per restaurant went slightly down because we are dividing by a higher number of 96. All right, so then we continue. Then we look at the revenue streams, because now we understand the business model, we understand how Fodjan makes money, how the franchisee restaurants operate. Let's then align. We're going to align with understanding the revenue streams and making sure that the revenue in the financial statements align with the revenue streams that they indicated for us. So where does it start? It starts there at, let's start with the bullet points, and then we will go back to the table. So first bullet point said, Fodjan charges an upfront 100,000 joining fee to new franchisees. No further joining fees are applicable if the franchise agreement is extended for a further 5 years and subsequent periods. Fodjan charges, okay, let's pause there. So that's in respect of the joining fee. But the joining fee, if I go into the table for 2022, is 320,000. For the year before audited was 170,000. The difference or the movement, the increase is 150,000, which is 88%. Quite a significant increase on a relative basis, but obviously it's on a small scale. 320,000, how? If I remember correctly, they had 10 new restaurants openings. So I would have expected 10 new restaurants, each paying 100,000, giving me $1 million. So why is it 320,000? A big question that I went back and forth in the PRI. I couldn't find any reason why it was the case, but that's me already applying critical thinking here. But anyway, I guess I can't resolve this one. It remains an unresolved question. Fodjan charges franchisees a monthly franchise fee of 5% of franchisee revenue. This fee was temporarily dropped to 4% during the harshest COVID-19 lockdowns. Okay, so if we look at 2021, audited franchisee fee, which is the first line, was 36 million, and current year was 51 million, and increased by 14 million, 42%. Well, I guess a portion of the increase should be attributable to the fact that the 2021 number was on a lower rate of 4%, and the 2022 number was on a 5%. It's just that I guess we don't know when, because they say that this was temporarily dropped during the harshest COVID-19 lockdowns. And what I would do if I were you, I would say, when did the lockdowns in South Africa start? They started somewhere end of March 2020. And then they went all the way to round about, was it February of 2021? So there would have been a big portion of the year 2020 that was impacted. There would have been probably a couple of months of 2021 that was using the 4% as well. But then later on, after the lockdowns have been uplifted, then one would have gone back to the 5%. So let's do that. Let's Google it quite already and understand COVID-19 lockdown period. Yeah, lockdown period in South Africa. Yes. As you see, adjusted level 1 was in place, but they say the harshest lockdown. So which one was the harshest? It's quite vague. Maybe the harshest I will take level 3 upwards. Adjusted alert level 3 was in place from July 26 to 12 September 2021. Okay. Yeah. When did lockdown start? I don't want the start. I actually want when did it end? When did lockdown end? Adjusted alert level 1 was in place from 1 October 2021 to 4 April 2022. Or does it mean, yeah, let's check. When did level 3, COVID-19, level 3 lockdown yes, it ended in September, actually, 2021. Maybe that's why then level 1 started in October 2021. So which is nice, because then it means mostly the full financial year of 2021 was on a 4%, which makes it easier. So if we were to do some trends analysis, and I would say 36,054 million and divided by 0.04, okay, and multiplied by 0.05. And then I was going to get 45,067,000. So this 45 million is indicating to me potentially if we continued with about as Fodjan with about 5% franchise fee, we would have ended 2021 with a revenue of approximately 45 million. Excuse me. So there is about 9 million differential. Excuse me again. Okay, there's a 9 million differential being the 1%. So actually then the 9 million so getting 36 to 45 million is not a real increase, was just actually like a subsidy. So actually the increase in revenue is something from 45 million to 51 million. Okay, so this significant jump is not purely as a result of good business, but as a result of coming from a lower base as well. So about 13% is an increase that is based on new efforts, probably. But I think one thing that I'm looking at as I go through this is the completeness and the accuracy of the revenue that is coming from our franchisees. If you guys remember in the email, if you look at the middle paragraph, they said, okay, so let's read this whole paragraph. Numerous questions were asked about our system of internal control for revenue. I'm not sure whether these questions are due to the sizable increase in revenue from prior financial year, But this got me to thinking about whether we have adequate controls in operation to ensure that these revenue streams are correctly invoiced to our franchisees. And correctly invoiced mean accurate invoicing and accuracy of the revenue. Because if the revenue that the franchisees are reporting is inaccurate, then our own Fodjan revenue will be inaccurate because we apply the 4 or the 5% on it. Similarly, the completeness of that revenue. So I hope the franchisees are not under-reporting, just so that, because they've got an incentive to pay a lower franchisee fee to us. Existence or occurrence, yes, could also be a risk, but that will arise from over-reporting by the franchisees, which is unlikely. So it's not a significant inherent risk, that one. It's a low risk. Unless we say, yes, even though they reported their number, the franchisees have reported their numbers, we at Fodjan then manipulate that revenue. And then we've got an occurrence issue as well. So I just wanted to also start doing the risk assessment as I'm doing this. All right, then there is a marketing fund contributions. Let's go read the second bullet point to understand what this is for. Fodjan also charges franchisees a monthly marketing fee of 3% of franchisee revenue. Payable monthly in arrears. In terms of the franchise agreements, Fodjan is the custodian of these funds and is contractually obliged to spend these funds on advertising and marketing, which is TV and digital advertising, for the benefit of all franchisees to promote the Fodjan brand. So there's an additional 3% contribution by the franchisees to Fodjan, and Fodjan is strictly contracted to spend this money on marketing. That's the task that we did a couple of days ago. So again, completeness and accuracy of revenue becomes a risk because the 3% is applied to that. Doesn't look like there was any dropping of the rate during COVID, but this also significantly increased by 36% by 8 million. Nice. Then Fodjan charges, Fodjan charges franchisees a 2% procurement fee based on the value of the goods and services that franchisees spend ordering via Fodjan's procurement portal. That procurement service fee, again, completeness, accuracy of revenue. Well, not necessarily of revenue, actually. It shouldn't say of revenue. It should say completeness and accuracy of the value of goods and services that the franchisees spend ordering via the portal. Then the completeness and accuracy of that, because 2% is applied to that, we see only a marginal increase of 180,000, which is 4%. All right, so it doesn't look like there is a significant increase in this one. There is also sales of sauces and seasoning. Completeness of it will be an issue. Accuracy of it, not so much, because they said the prices are set centrally, unless there is a manipulation of some sort, but also increased just by 8%. So if I look at this revenue streams, I mean, procurement, marginal increase, sales of sauces and seasoning, marginal increase, franchise fees, 13% real increase, marketing fund and fund contribution, 36% increase. That's significantly higher. And joining fee, I guess that's not a measure of performance, but it's performance of how many new franchisees you've gotten into the system, into the franchise relationship. And it's a small base. I guess the analytic person in me wants to do more around this analysis. I want to think about putting together this and understanding the percentage contribution to say each of these revenue streams, how are they contributing to the 100% of the total revenue, to understand the percentage contribution and whether that is moving year on year. But when I look at this also versus the information that we're reading around understanding the business model, there is no revenue stream that is missing, that I would say, why was it not added? Yeah, so nothing is missing, nothing is duplicated. It all aligns. It makes sure that I understand the business model. So then, yeah, remember, if we go back to here, now we've got a high-level understanding of the process flow. We've got an understanding of, we've done some analytics on the revenue. We understand the revenue model, but can we go and understand some of the automated and manual controls related to this point of sale system? We're doing some risk assessment procedures as we're going, and I want you guys to focus on that. And some of the cats, shall we look at the controls and the cats and the data analytics? Let's try. Okay, so let's start with the internal controls before we get to the data. So in some of the internal controls, I would have expected you guys to understand really internal control environment in a franchise environment. So remember, what are some of the data risks will be at the time of input risk. So at the time of putting information into the point of sale system, are the controls adequate? And once the information is in this system, is it protected so that it's not manipulated or disrupted? So that is the integrity risk. And when we are using this information, this data, we are taking it out of the point of sale system, are we extracting it properly and not losing some data during the extraction process? So that is extraction risk. So you need controls at each of this to address all these three risks. And this internal controls will be spanning between IT general controls, such as logical access, security controls, password protections, antiviruses, encryptions, etc. Operations and changes, application controls, such as interfaces, if they are systems talking to each other, or you are extracting one information to the next system, validations, etc. Then you've got manual control. So I would have expected you to spend a significant amount of time reminding yourself of some of these controls. And if you are an EPC candidate, to really go back to that 4-hour screencast that talks about internal controls. Please, it's never too late, it's never too early, it's never too much to just go and remind yourself of the principles that are coming out of that screencast. Data and analytics. Yeah, on the data analytics part, other than the little analysis that I told you that I've done and I told you to go do around compositions, I don't know what more to do. But I mean, this is a topical area. I mean, everywhere you go, they talk about artificial intelligence and data analytics. I want to know what it's all about. And the good place, if I don't know what to do, is always to start at Google and just understand what is data analytics. It refers to the way data is managed to support all uses of data and the analysis of data to drive improved decisions. It's to use this data to drive improved decisions and business processes and outcomes, such as discovering new business risks, especially around trends identification. When the trends are not in line with what you would have expected, that's discovering new business risks, challenges, and opportunities. So in the context of Fodjan, as I was, because initially I Googled data analytics, and then I got the theoretical part of it. Then I also Googled franchise data and analytics. because I wanted in the context of a franchise, like a Fodjan. And I found this nice article. It was actually one of the top articles that I came across. And it was very clear that it's talking about, it's saying to us, a franchise that focuses on generating a significant amount of relevant information to analyze will give them the ability to identify trends and help their franchisees optimize their performance. Interesting. And as I read on the article, I found a number of things, especially the ones that you see in the green bubble, around benchmarking, to say the data that you're gonna be collecting from your franchisees. As a franchisor, you need to benchmark each of them against geographical location and market, the revenue tier, the years they've been in the Fodjan's brand, because the ones that are newly in the brand may perform worse or better than the ones that have always existed. So just some benchmarking and taking some insight into the customers of franchisees, the products, the pricing, and anything else, and rank them. So ranking your franchisees, because once you rank them, then you've got to act on the data to provide additional training and support, I guess, to the poorly ranked franchisees. So that is quite, it was quite a nice article. And from it, I could even tell that some of the data analytics that I could find are split between financial and operational analytics. And these are part of what we call key performance indicators, KPIs. So when we look at financial analytics, if you are in the food industry like Fodjan, some of your KPIs could be food costs. How are the costs relative to each other? Labor costs, are there some paying others more wages than the others, and why? Especially per head. Weekly sales, average order per customer. Okay, maybe the one that has more orders per customer is good, providing good service, and there's high customer satisfaction level. Employee turnover, that will give you a sense of how well they look after their employees. Operational analytics. Examples of operational analytics include identifying insight into how many customers you served in a given day, the number of services you provided, your efficiency, how many minutes did it take to provide service to each of the customers, your customer satisfaction score. This can be sourced again from the point of sale system or social media. Then some common ratios generated from combining financial and operational data will include revenue per customer, revenue or average ticket per shift, customer per hour. Okay. But one critical comment and question that this article asked, and it stuck with me, it said, yes, we are calculating all these ratios, both financial and operational, and analyzing all this data. But the important question is, how do you know that the data is complete? But the auditor in me, it doesn't just stop at complete. It says, how do I know that this data is complete, accurate, has occurred? Okay, so those are the three key relevant assertions when you do a risk assessment for revenue that is coming from franchisees. How do you know that the data is accurate, complete, and has occurred, meaning it's data that exists, like, or it's revenue that exists? So I guess because I'm worried that if the CFO is worried that are we invoicing correctly, it's the question of, are we invoicing everything we should be? Are we invoicing correct rates, correct amounts? And does that revenue exist? So it's a whole lot of those things. And I would have liked you to spend another time on this just to unpack it a little bit more. And then if I go back Did we cover everything? Yes, we've got a high-level understanding of the process flow, automated and manual controls that we need to study. That's number 2. We now have updated our understanding of risk assessment procedures, relevant assertion, inherent risk factors, guys. The cats, the cats, remember, those are your KPIs and the ratios that you are calculating, because you're gonna extract a number of cats, but you guys need to go and do more and some of this analytics. So we've covered this high level, and you guys need to go and do the detail. And on Thursday, the 16th of December, then we will unpack this and see whether we are the subject area expert in this, so that we are ready for the task. Thank you. Oh, I said thank you already. I know, but one thing that I forgot, was going back here, especially when you do the controls, is to come back to this bullet point, the second bullet point from the last, where it's talking about all Fodjan's franchisees are required to install this point of sale, and which enables, for instance, the registering of orders and sending this directly to the kitchen, to understand if we've got controls in place at each of these parts. Because could a customer get food, for instance, without registering the order on the system? Because if you bypass the system like that, for instance, then and you don't put your order on the system, the food gets sold. There is a franchisee revenue, but for us as Fodjan, we're not going to know, and then we're not going to get our 5%. And the accuracy of those orders. I mean, for instance, I want I can't, well, I know they don't sell pizza and pasta and the likes. You see, I need to know what they're selling again. What did they sell? They're selling, oh yes, burger. I wanted to make a burger example, but I wanted to make sure that it's part of their menu. For instance, if I want 2 burgers, one for myself and one for my little daughter, is there a way that we register one order, but we get 2 orders, for instance? Then that will give us risk on the accuracy of the order, okay? Could we receive 2 burgers when we registered for 1 order? So that's actually evaluating that, checking on the status of the order. I guess that's operational, and once it's registered, I'm more interested in the operational statistic as to from registration until the waiter checks out the order. How long is the time lag on average? Because it will give us a sense on the less performing franchisees. Modification of orders. That's a significant one. Again, we've ordered 2 orders, one for myself and one for my little daughter. And they are in the system, but when we're sitting there, or before that even the order comes, or whilst it has arrived, whilst we're eating, we're thinking, we left mommy at home, and what is she gonna eat? Then we ask the waiter to add on another burger. Do they go and update that system and register and modify that order? And what are the controls around modification? Or could they even go and modify the order and charge a 3rd burger, but that I didn't ask for? Those are some of the risks that you need to, because then it's no longer about completeness and accuracy. It's now about occurrence of the revenue. Processing of payments, etc. I guess they've got cards, they've got cash. Cash is always risky because people can pickpocket and not register anything on the system, and mobile wallets, etc. So I want you to really apply yourself. What are the risks and what typical controls you'd expect defined in this type of an environment to ensure occurrence, completeness, and accuracy of the franchisee revenue, because that filters into occurrence, existence, or occurrence, completeness, and accuracy of the franchisor revenue, Fodjan's revenue. Now, I'm really serious. Thank you, guys. Okay.